Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to solve one of the absolute most frustrating little grammar puzzles out there. You know, the kind of thing that almost every English learner bumps into at some point. If you've ever stopped dead mid-sentence, completely second-guessing your preposition, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going straight into the underlying logic of English transportation vocabulary, so you literally never have to guess again. On the bus or in the bus? I mean, have you ever felt like a totally confused student scratching your head over this exact scenario? Picture this. You're standing at the bus stop. Those big doors hiss open, and suddenly, your brain just completely freezes. Are you getting in it or on it? Now, it seems like a tiny, almost insignificant detail, right? But native speakers can instantly hear when it's just slightly off. It's a classic trip-up, but today, we're going to clear away those floating question marks for good. All right, let's slow the pace down for a second and just clearly lay out the fundamental rule here. For major public transportation vehicles, we always use the word on the bus, on the train, on the plane, on the ship. So what do all of these vehicles have in common? Well, they're large, they're public, and they're built for moving massive groups of people. When you're dealing with these big modes of transit, on is basically your golden ticket. Let's actually look at how this plays out in a real sentence. Okay, so I met my friend on the bus. This is exactly how a native speaker would naturally describe this scenario. You definitely wouldn't say you met them in the bus. You met them on the bus. The absolutely crucial point here is just how natural and effortless it sounds in everyday conversation. You're simply stating a fact about where an event happened, and you're effortlessly applying that key public transportation rule without even blinking. Let's reinforce that core rule with another example to really lock it in your brain. There were many people on the train. Notice how the exact same rule applies identically to trains? A train is literally just another form of large public transportation. You don't need to memorize one rule for buses and then a totally different one for trains and yet another one for planes. It's just one unified rule. Large public transport equals on. But you might be wondering, why? Why on earth does the English language do this?
Well, it's actually pretty fascinating. English treats large public vehicles as places where passengers board and ride. Actually, think about it structurally for a second. These aren't just simple, small vehicles. They're essentially large, moving platforms. You literally step up onto them. You can stand up, you can stretch your legs, you can walk down the aisle, right? Because you have that physical freedom to walk upon a surface inside the vehicle, English grammar treats it like a platform you are on rather than a small box that you're trapped inside.
So let's see how this whole concept builds into our action verbs. Think about that physical boarding process we just talked about. It's a very specific two-step action. Step 1, you get on the bus. You step up those stairs onto that moving platform. Step 2, when you finally arrive at your destination, you get off the bus. You step down from the platform. We don't say we get into the bus or out of the bus. Get on and get off perfectly match this logical idea of a moving floor that you are just temporarily riding. And this logical framework? It is incredibly consistent, even when you're talking about the duration of the ride. Take this sentence. We were on the bus for 2 hours. The time passes while you are situated on that platform. Whether that bus is moving super fast, stopped at a station, or cruising through different landscapes, your position relative to the vehicle stays exactly the same. You are spending 2 hours on it. Understanding this foundational logic just moves you so much further away from that initial panic and confusion. Okay, now for the ultimate test. Let's look at a really clear visual contrast to lock this memory in forever. When you have large vehicles, the bus, the train, the plane, you use on because, like we said, you can stand up in them. But smaller vehicles, like a car or a taxi, those require in. Why? Well, because you can't exactly stand up and stroll down an aisle inside a Honda Civic. You have to crouch down, fold your body, and physically place yourself inside a small enclosed space. So massive vehicles you walk onto require on. Small vehicles you crouch down to enter require in. See? It actually makes perfect logical sense.
So let's test your new instincts with some real-world scenarios. Here is a highly relatable mistake, unfortunately. I left my bag on the bus. If you accidentally forget your backpack on the seat, you left it on the bus. Notice how natural and smooth that flows? You left it on the moving platform.
Here's another super common everyday example. We talked on the bus all the way home. Imagine just chatting with a friend. You're riding the platform, you're deeply engaged in conversation, and the entire time you are on the bus. It's honestly the most perfect way to describe the setting of your ride.
Or consider this one. There were 50 passengers on the bus. This really emphasizes the massive capacity we talked about earlier. I mean, 50 people simply cannot fit inside a small car, but they can easily board the large platform of a bus. This massive capacity is essentially the ultimate proof of why on makes perfect sense. You're sharing this huge riding space with dozens of other people.
So here is your final real-world takeaway. If you are talking about traveling by bus, the phrase is simply on the bus. It is the totally natural choice in everyday English. You literally don't need to overthink it anymore. You have the logic, you have the visual of that large platform, and you have the clear contrast with small cars. You are now fully empowered to just trust this natural phrasing in your daily conversations.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. Next time you travel, will you confidently step on the bus? Well, I certainly hope so. You have completely conquered this grammar puzzle. That confused student scratching their head? Gone. You've got the rules, you've got the examples, and most importantly, you actually understand the why. Keep practicing your English today, trust the logic we went over, and confidently step on to your next adventure. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.